Let's create a remote repository that we can tie our local repository to. There are a number of repositories that you can use, such as GitHub. I'm going to choose to use Bitbucket, and I will log into Bitbucket because I already have an account. If you don't have an account, it's very easy to set up, and Bitbucket for this kind of use is free. I'm going to create a new repository, and I'm going to call that repository. What I want to do is give it the same name as the project or directory that I'm working in. You will remember that the directory we're working in is git sample. So I'm going to come over here to Bitbucket and call this git sample. Not required, but very useful. I will leave it as a private repository. For now, I'm not going to include a README, but I do want to make sure that I'm using Git for my version control. And I'll go ahead and create this repository. Bitbucket will create this remote repository called Git sample. However, it knows nothing about our local repository. We need to tie them together, and Bitbucket tells us exactly how to do this. Connect your existing repository to Bitbucket. So I'm going to copy these two lines to my clipboard, and then going to open my terminal and paste those two lines in, hit enter, and now my local repository is connected to my remote repository, and my code has been uploaded to that remote repository. And we can see that by going back to Bitbucket, going to my list of repositories, and here's Git sample. If I click in Git sample, I see Hello World TS is in fact there, and I can even click into Hello World TS and see the source code. Now let's return to Visual Studio Code, and let's make a change. We don't need this while loop or this variable, so let's take that out and delete that. And there are a couple things to note. First of all, we get this blue line in the gutter. That indicates that change. And Hello World TS shows up under our changes with an M for modified. There are a few things we can do now. We can hit the plus symbol and stage that change, and now it's under stage changes, or hit the minus from there and make it unstaged. Another thing we can do is hit this circular back arrow, which will discard all of our changes. If I do that, it will confirm, and then you notice my code is exactly back to the way it was. But let's go ahead and delete that. And we see under changes, Hello World TS has changed as soon as my file is saved, which happens, as you'll remember, automatically every second. And so I'm going to go ahead and stage that change, put in a message, removed unnecessary while loop. And I'm going to go ahead and commit that. At this point, I can come here to the three dots, the ellipsis, drop it down, and tell it that I want to push the changes I just made up to the remote repository on Bitbucket. Let's take a look at what we have here. We have pull, which will pull down from the remote, pull and rebase. We can pull from a different repository, and parallel to that, we have push and push to a different repository. We also have sync, which will do a pull and then a push automatically. And if you're working with more than one developer, that's a really good way to do things. First, pull down any changes and then push your changes. But I'm working alone, so I can just go ahead and push my changes. Notice that it says it's working, and now it's done. And down here, we find that we're on the master branch. At the moment, that's the only one we have. And we can go over to our master branch by switching over to Chrome to take a look at Bitbucket. And let's go back to the repository. So we'll hit repositories, Git sample, and Hello World TS, and notice that the change has been saved.